Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Part 2, Two Avatars. We're going to read from Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service. Kapila begins to deliver his instructions to Devahuti on Sankhya philosophy and devotional service. Although the sun had dropped behind the western hills, the air remained warm. The Naimisharanya sages spoke animatedly to one another, marveling at Kardam's character. After leading an exemplary household life and making provision for his devoted wife, he renounced his family to set the right example for others. Eager to hear more from Sutta, the assembly gradually quietened. Verse 1. Shaunak said, I understand that this Kapila is the unborn supreme person, his body is spiritual, and he incarnated to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of humanity. Sutta nodded, yes, that is correct. Verses 2 and 3, Shaunak folded his palms. Dear Sutta, to hear the Lord's instructions is the sense's real pleasure. He knows all the Vedas and is the most accomplished yogi. No one knows more than him. Kindly therefore narrate Lord Kapila's activities which are fully spiritual. A roar of approval arose from the assembled sages. Verse 4, Sutta said, just as you're asking me, similarly, Vidur asked Maitreya, his father's intimate friend. Listen now to his reply. Chattering loudly, black-lowed tits chased each other among the branches of Ashwatha tree under which Maitreya and Vidur sat. Streaks of black and yellow flashed in and out of the foliage. Oblivious to this aerial display, Vidur said, what did Kapil do after Kardam left? Verse 5, Maitreya said, Kapil remained behind to console his aggrieved mother. I shall relate what happened next. It was a week since Kardam's departure, 7 days in which Devahuti wept ceaselessly, unable to sleep or eat. She had always known her husband would one day renounce family life. But now he was gone. She was in shock. She had served him faithfully for many years, captivated by his kindness and saintly character. Now she lay disheveled on the floor of her palatial mansion. Her dark locks falling in a knotted tangle down her back, her beautiful face lined with grief, and her reddened eyes looking out from dark hollows. She remembered the first day she had failed to find him in any of his usual meditation spots. She had run in a panic through the woods and down the Ganga's banks, calling his names. Hearing her frantic calls, her son Kapila had come, gently calming her. He confirmed her worst fear. Kardam was gone. Over the course of the next few days, Devahuti sent messengers to her relatives, asking if she may visit them. She wanted to get away from her mansion where everything reminded her of Kardam. However, they all declined. Her brother Uttanapad replied that he was facing a crisis. It was not a good time for her to visit. His son Dhruva had just run away from home at the tender age of 5. So it's all a very, very saintly family we're talking here. Devahuti's brother Uttanapad, her son was Dhruva Maharaj. And here Devahuti and Kardam had the son, Lord Kapila, which was Lord incarnated himself. So his son Dhruva had just run away, Uttanapad said, from home at the tender age of 5. Devahuti, younger sister Prasuti, similarly replied that her family was in the throes of a catastrophe. Her husband Daksha envied his son-in-law Shiva. He had publicly insulted him, resulting in a confrontation between Daksha and Shiva's followers. Shiva had abruptly left in order to avoid an escalation of the dispute. Prasuti feared that the situation could get worse. Suti, sister of Devahuti, and Shiva is the, in our worldly terms we can say, brother-in-law of Devahuti and Uttanpada. This was not a safe time for Devahuti to come. The messengers had been unable to locate Devahuti's eldest brother, Priyavrata. Some believed that he had adopted the life of a mendicant. Her older sister Akuti had just given birth to her second child. As the news came in, Devahuti was shocked. Uttanpada and Prasuti had seemed to have perfect lives. They were religious, successful, happily married, and widely respected. How was it that they were enduring such difficulties? Tears trickled down her cheek. Her maidservant Medha offered a soft cloth to wipe her face. Devahuti smiled tearfully. "Oh Medha, what shall I do?" Another of her intimate servants, Kshama, said, "My lady, we must find your husband. He cannot have gone far away. When he hears how you are suffering, he will surely return." Devahuti stroked Kshama's cheeks. "You are so kind and gentle, Kshama. I would like nothing more than to be with my husband again. But that time has passed. He will not return, nor could I possibly ask him. He has gone to achieve spiritual perfection." A third servant, Drangini, tried to lighten her mood. "Cheer up, mistress. You still have us, and we can pretend to be your good husband." She put on a grave look and sat down in mock meditation, her eyes closed and her two hands held out in Gyan Mudra. The other maidservants laughed. Rangini opened her eyes and her pretty face broke into a smile that turned into a concerned frown when she saw Devahuti's tearful features. Medha put a comforting arm around Devahuti's shoulder. "Mistress, surely you recall Lord Brahma's prophecy?" Devahuti checked her tears and brushed her hair away from her face. "You mean that my son Kapila would instruct me in spiritual science?" "Yes, exactly. I think that time for that has come. Only he can give you relief." "You are right, Medha, but where is he now?" "We saw him by the lake, seated in meditation. I will show you." Devahuti took a deep breath. This was surely her only hope. "Very well, let us leave at once." Medha took Devahuti's hand and helped her rise. Leading her mistress away, she called out to the other Gandharva girls, "Make preparation. Our lady will take breakfast on the bank of Bindu Sarovar, surrounded by her three closest companions." Devahuti hurried to the lake. Numerous other maidens followed behind, carrying seats, canopies, and other paraphernalia. In the early morning light, Devahuti found her son seated in meditation under a yellow-blossomed champak tree. Her companions announced her presence, quickly arranging a seat and canopy for her. His meditation broken, Kapila opened his eyes to see his tearful mother standing breathless before him. Rising quickly, he touched her feet and asked how he might serve her. Verse 7 and 8, Devahuti said, "My dear Lord, I am disgusted by my senses demanding gratification. They have cast me into an abyss of suffering. You are my only means of salvation, my transcendental guide. By your mercy, I have attained your association after countless births." Verses 9 and 10, she knelt before him. I know you are the Supreme Person, the origin of everything and the Lord of all beings. Like the sun, you have come to dispel the darkness of ignorance in the universe. Kindly dispel my delusional identification with this body and its relations. Verse 11, her face streaming like tears, she looked pleadingly at her son. I take refuge of your lotus feet because you are the only person capable of giving shelter. You are the axe which can cut down the tree of material existence. I offer you obeisance, for you are the greatest transcendentalist. Kapila knelt beside her, placing his arm around her shoulders. What would you like to know, dear mother? Devahuti had often heard Kardam speak about Prakriti and Purusha and how misery arose due to their combination. I wish to understand the relationship between Prakriti and Purusha. Why is the living entity forced to suffer in material life, and how can this pain cease? Verses 12 to 14, Kapila assisted his mother to her seat. Sitting before her, he said, "As you know, mother, there are various yoga systems with different goals. I will tell you about that yoga which aims at re-establishing the soul's eternal relationship with Krishna. This is life's highest possible goal. Attaining it, one automatically becomes detached from material happiness and distress. Most pious lady, I shall explain to you this ancient yoga system which I formerly taught to the great sages. It is eternally relevant and practical for everyone. Wiping away her tears, Devahuti listened intently. Verses 15 to 17. Kapila said, attraction to matter is the cause of bondage, whereas attraction to Krishna brings about liberation. So, the opening lines are also self-explanatory in everything. Our attraction to the matter is the cause of our bondage, and attraction to Krishna brings about liberation. One must cleanse the mind of lust and greed, which arise from identifying with the material body and mind. When the mind is purified, one becomes detached from worldly happiness and distress. At that time, he perceives his true effulgent spiritual self. Transcendental to matter, he sees himself as my eternal part and parcel, minute in size, never separate from me, yet always an individual. Verses 18 and 19, one then acts on this knowledge by serving me and giving up sin. He comes to see everything as my energy meant for my service, and he becomes free of mundane desire. His service to me becomes imbued with love, and the material energy's influence over him is reduced to almost nothing. This perfection cannot be achieved by either the karma, jnana or ashtanga yogis unless they add to their practice bhakti yoga, which is the only effective process of self-realization. Verse 20, Bhakti Yoga begins when one associates with my pure devotees. To become detached from the material enjoyment, which is the cause of bondage, one must transfer his attachment to such devotees. They are the door to liberation because they give real knowledge of the self and teach my devotional service. Verse 21 to 23, such devotees are tolerant, merciful and friendly to all. Not satisfied with their own liberation, they help others spiritually. They are peaceful and never deviate from the scriptural principles. Most importantly, Mother, true saints serve me continuously. To satisfy me, they renounce all the connections, such as family and friends, immersed in hearing about me, the Supreme Lord, or about my pure devotees. They experience so much transcendental pleasure, they forget the miseries of life. Verse 24, virtuous lady, I have described the qualities of devotees. So Lord has described the qualities of devotees to Devahuti. In divine consciousness who are free from attachment. Anyone desiring freedom from material energy must associate with such saints. Devahuti sighed. Her husband had those qualities and had renounced his family without difficulty. She, though, was just a fallen conditioned soul. Her humility made Kapila smile. She was his mother, a highly advanced devotee. It was only because of his Yogmaya that he exhibited ignorance, enabling him to deliver his teachings for the good of the world. Verse 25, Kapil continued, my dear mother, I will now explain how one should associate with my pure devotees and how the results unfold. Such saints discuss my pastimes and teachings in a way that pleases the ear and satisfies the heart. By such discussions, one contemplates and he tries to understand my transcendental activities. He thus advances on the path of liberation, going through three important stages. Firstly, his faith in spiritual truth becomes firm. Secondly, he acquires a taste for such discussions. And finally, his loving relationship with me awakens. Verse 26, by systematically discussing my pastimes, as they are revealed by authorized sources, one becomes increasingly advanced in spiritual life, losing interest in material enjoyment in this life and the next. This is the best yoga practice as it directly connects one with me, the Supreme Person. Simply by hearing and chanting about me, One easily spiritualizes his consciousness exactly as mystics, yogis do by the difficult Ashtanga process. Verse 27, by continuously engaging in such bhakti, yoga, and thereby rising above the modes of nature, one sees how everything should be used for my pleasure rather than enjoyed or falsely renounced, with his mind thus fixed on me. He attains my association in that same life. A rustling sound made them look up to see a group of maidservants hurrying along the forest path carrying refreshment. Smiling, he said, "Your breakfast has arrived. Please refresh yourself. I will continue with my morning prayers." Kapila touched his mother's feet and respectfully excused himself. He entered the Saraswati, half submerging himself, and began to recite sacred mantras. Rangini jumped to her feet. "I don't know about you, my lady, but all that philosophy has made me hungry. Devahuti smiled. "I will just have coconut milk this morning, Rangini." Rangini craned her head to survey the different dishes being laid out. "Ooh, mangoes, melons, pomegranates." Her eyes widened with delight as she spotted the cooked food: samosas, kachoris, sandesh, rasgullas. "Are you sure you only want a drink?" Kshama was already walking back with 2 tender coconuts, still in their green skins, their tops sliced off and thin bamboo straws placed in them. As Devahuti sipped the juice, her 3 companions made a platter. Sitting next to her, Medha picked up a slice of mango and offered it to Devahuti. "This looks so juicy. Just try this piece." Devahuti opened her mouth and let Medha slip the mango in. "Oh, it's delicious," Medha laughed. "I knew you would like it. Here I brought this platter for you." Devahuti felt grateful to have such loving companions. The 4 of them settled down to their morning refreshments. Syrup running down her chin, Rangini said, "Personally, I didn't understand a thing. How about you?" Kshama leaned over and wiped Rangini's chin with a napkin. "What didn't you understand, funny girl?" "Well, to start with Mistress Devahuti's question." Turning to Devahuti, she said, "I know you have been morose since your husband left, my lady. I was expecting you to ask something like, how can I overcome my depression, or maybe, how can I get my husband back?" Her other 3 companions laughed. Encouraged, Rangini continued, "I was completely flummoxed when you asked, what is the relationship between Prakriti and Purush? What has that got to do with the problem at hand?" Devahuti replied, "Well, I have heard my husband say that misery is due to that relationship. I thought if I understood this better, I would stop suffering." Kshama asked, "What is Prakriti and Purusha?" "Prakriti means female and Purusha means male." Rangini stopped eating. "So suffering is because of the relationship between men and women?" Devahuti sighed. "So it seems." Rangini put her fists on her hips. "Aren't we single ladies lucky?" Then, when they had stopped laughing, Medha spoke. "Purusha means enjoyer. The term refers to the Supreme Lord as well as anyone who imitates him as enjoyer. Prakriti means the enjoyed. Factually, the Lord is the only Purusha, and everyone and everything else is meant to be enjoyed by him and are thus Prakriti. So apart from Lord, everybody and everything is Prakriti, to be enjoyed by Lord, the Purusha. The terms can also refer to men and women because the men enjoy women. However, since both men and women are trying to enjoy the material energy, all conditioned souls can be referred to as Purushas and material energy or nature as Prakriti. So this is another beautiful meaning given here. Men as Purusha, ladies as Prakriti, and both men and women are trying to enjoy the material energy, so all can be also referred to as Purushas. Kshama, who had been listening intently, said, "Whether you knew it or not, my lady, your question was quite complicated, as well as asking about the relationship between men and women. It could be a question about the relationship between God and the living beings, or the living beings and the material nature. Rangini screwed up her face. So exactly how did he answer any of those questions? They all turned to Medha, who was finishing her breakfast. She washed her hands from a pitcher, then dried them with the end of her sari. Seeing everyone looking expectantly at her, she said, I recall. He started his reply by explaining that the yoga which re-establishes the soul's eternal relationship with Krishna is the best because it automatically frees one from suffering. So we'll finish our reading of this chapter here. We will resume our reading from here onwards next time, because it is such deep, meaningful explanations by Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti, as his father Kardam Muni has left the family setting. He has renounced everything. So we'll continue from here onwards next time. I wish you all a very happy Varuthini Ekadashi. This is one of the most merciful Ekadashis. So please listen to the glories of the Lord, chant his name, and make most of this Ekadashi. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.